Assalamu alaikum girls. Today we are going to start the new unit which is bioenergetics. In this chapter, actually this chapter is related to the biochemistry of the metabolism in the body. So all the reactions will be present which occur inside the body of the plants and the animals also. So the role of the ATP, the photosynthesis, mechanism of photosynthesis, and respiration, all these processes will be discussed. So it says that we have studied open systems, those substances which are entering and leaving the cell all the times. Now inside the cells the substances are broken down and new substances are formed. Energy is the key to all these processes actually. So because of the presence of energy, all these processes can take place. Without the energy, there would be no metabolism inside the body and no reactions would take place. So there is kinetic energy which is involved in doing work inside the body. Energy is present in two forms, and the potential energy which will be stored for the future use. And whenever, so this is the important point, when the potential energy is stored in the chemical bonds and is released as kinetic energy when these bonds are broken. So when the bonds are formed, it means potential energy is stored, and when these bonds are broken, uh, it means that the energy is released in the form of kinetic energy. Okay, so bioenergetics and the role of ATP. Bioenergetics is, bio means life and energetics means the study of energy relationships and energy transformations. Like it means the conversion of energy in the living organisms is actually bioenergetics. So this is the definition of bioenergetics. Organisms obtain energy by metabolizing the food. Actually we eat food and we metabolize it with the help of this kind of metabolism. Actually that is catabolism. Catabolism means when we are going to gain energy, like when the energy is released in a process. Breaking down, after breaking down, when the food is broken down, we release energy because because there are bonds inside the molecules of the food, and potential energy is stored in the bonds. When these bonds are broken down, a large amount of kinetic energy is usually released, that we have already discussed earlier. Some of this energy is stored in the form of potential energy in the and when we are going to eat something, some of the energy is utilized as kinetic energy and some of it is stored in the form of ATP molecules. And the third form is the escapation of the when the energy escapes as heat. So some of it is used, some of it is stored in the form of ATP molecules, and some of it escapes as heat. The potential energy stored in the ATP is again transformed into kinetic energy to carry out life activities. So when we need that energy, that ATP is again transformed into kinetic energy to carry out life activities. What is ATP? ATP is actually the currency of energy. So these are the units of energy, and the body stores the energy in the form of ATP. Plants and some microorganisms, for example photosynthetic bacteria and algae. So these are the microorganisms and plants which can prepare their own food with the help of carbon dioxide and water in the presence of light, which is known as photosynthesis. Plants and some microorganisms, and the examples of these microorganisms are photosynthetic bacteria and algae. So these are photosynthetic, so they prepare their food with the help of photosynthesis. That is clearly very easy to understand. Whereas animals, fungi, and many organisms, they are non-photosynthetic, and some bacteria which are non-photosynthetic, they and protozoans also, they we get prepared food. So we cannot prepare the food, so we fall in the category of consumers and not producers. Plants are the only producers of the biome. So here they are showing a simple uh, process of energy transformation, that whenever CO2 is utilized with the help of plants, then in the presence of light, which is the input energy, the light radiant energy. So with the help of carbon dioxide and the light energy, there is the production of the food, which is, and the bonds are usually carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen bonds are there. So actually they produce the foods which, like vegetables and fruits, then we consume those fruits, and with First of all, reduction of carbon dioxide is seen, and then the food is produced with the presence of light. Then this food stuff is oxidized to release energy, and this happens in the body of the animals. And the heat is released. Storage of energy in the formation of ATP, and actually ATP, the full form of ATP is adenosine triphosphate, and when and this is produced. This is just a like sample reaction, that when ADP is adenosine diphosphate, di means 2 and ATP means adenosine triphosphate, which means 3. So actually, for the formation of ATP, we have, if we have here A ADP, that is diphosphate, after the addition of one more phosphate, what happens, it is converted into ATP, so adenosine triphosphate. This is the reaction which exhibits this phenomena. So the transformation of energy, like when it is stored, the ATP when stored is used where? These are the three processes where it is used: in active transport, in the maintenance of the cell, and in the chemical synthesis of different materials, and some of it is released as heat also. So one thing if we see is constant is that heat is lost in each and every transformation. Here the heat is lost, and the heat is lost here also. Why? Because this is how metabolism works. Some of the energy is released in the form of heat also. And the simple example of this process is when you are doing exercise. During your exercise, the heat is also the sum of the energy. The ATP molecules are transferred into the kinetic energy. Yes, they are actually transferred into the kinetic energy when you are working out, and some of it is released as heat with the help of your breathing process. So oxidation reduction reaction is the next topic. The oxidation reduction reactions, see, these oxidation reduction reaction are different from chemistry, but at some point same also. So the definitions will be a little different. You cannot write the same matter as mentioned in your chemistry book. So various life processes in organisms, they involve constant flow of energy. This comprises the acquisition, transformation, and use of energy. And because actually for the metabolism we need oxidation and reduction reactions both. And when we are going to talk about both of them, we call them redox reactions: oxidation and reduction. So reduction, RED from reduction, and OX from oxidation, redox reactions. They are the direct source of energy. Redox reactions involve exchange of electrons between atoms. The loss of electrons is called oxidation, while the gain of electron is known as reduction. So the actual definition is related to the electron loss and electron gain. Electrons can be an energy source. It depends upon their location and arrangement in the atom. For example, when they are present in oxygen, they make stable association with oxygen atom and are not good energy source. But they are, if they are dragged away, if like we have studied this already, the loss of electrons and the gain of electrons. When the electrons are lost from oxygen, it means they are dragged away, and they get attached to some other atom, for example carbon or hydrogen. They make unstable association, so they try to move back to oxygen. When this happens, energy is released. So this is known as which kind of reaction? Oxidation reaction. In living organisms, the redox reaction involves the loss and gain of hydrogen atoms. So when we are talking about redox reactions, we say that it is gaining hydrogen atoms or losing hydrogen atoms, because hydrogen atom also contain electrons. And when when we know that a hydrogen atom contains one proton and one electron, that when a molecule uses a hydrogen atom, it actually loses an electron. So that this is what I mentioned, that if we are talking about the loss of a hydrogen atom, it means an electron is also lost. If you study the structure of hydrogen atom, it is like this. This is the hydrogen atom, and it contains one electron. So if you lose one hydrogen atom, it means you are going to lose one electron. Understand? And if you are going to gain one hydrogen atom, it means you are gaining one electron. So gaining of electron is reduction and losing of electron is oxidation, the same thing. Just for the purpose of your understanding, they are explaining it. See, in this diagram, they are showing the oxidation compound, how do they lose electron, and reduction compound, how do they gain electron. Okay, so when they gain electron, we call the compound is reduced, and when there is loss of electron, we call it oxidation. So the compound is oxidized. Now the cell's energy currency is ATP, which I have already mentioned. The major energy currency of all the cell is nucleotide called adenosine triphosphate ATP. It was discovered in 1929 by Karl Lohmann and was proposed to be the main energy transfer molecule in the cell by the Nobel Prize winner Fritz Lipmann in 1941. So please remember the dates for your objective. And it is the main energy source for the majority of the cellular functions like synthesis of macromolecules. Actually, this is the energy source. For what purposes? Synthesis of DNA, RNA, and proteins. ATP means adenosine triphosphate. The structure is also given here. And there are many functions of ATP: movement of the cell, movement, transmission of nerve impulses, active transport, exocytosis, and endocytosis. I hope you are getting used to the terms because we have already discussed this in detail in the previous chapter, which is your chapter number 4. The ability of ATP to store and release energy is due to its molecular structure. How does it store energy and how does it release energy? Simplified diagram is given. See this here. The first one, it has an adenine. Adenine is a double ring nitrogenous base. This here is adenine, double ring nitrogenous base. Then the second structure is ribose. Ribose is actually a sugar, and this sugar is a 5 carbon sugar. So actually, where are the 5 carbons? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, 5 carbons, they are attached in the form of a ring and they form a sugar, which is known as ribose. This one is a nucleotide. The name of the nitrogenous base, and the name of the nitrogenous base is adenine. Here we have a sugar. The name of the sugar is ribose. And then we have the third part of the structure is phosphate groups in a linear chain. First phosphate group, second and third. So because ATP plays a central role in as energy currency in all organisms, it must have appeared in the early history of life. So this is what people like the scientists think about it. So see, if the reaction, now see here, look at the diagram to understand it completely. They can ask you to draw the structure and you might get confused, so please listen carefully. Till here is this, the structure is adenosine. Okay, then after the addition of one phosphate it becomes AMP. Okay, adenosine monophosphate. And then after the, if they ask you to draw the structure of AMP, you have to write adenosine monophosphate and then draw the structure with one phosphate group. If they require the structure of ADP, then till here you have to add the second phosphate group, also adenosine diphosphate, and as a result of third phosphate group it turns itself into adenosine triphosphate. So actually the structure is of molecular ATP, but there are three more structures, ADP and AMP, also present here. This is a new branch for you, so if there is any issue regarding your regarding the topics, please feel free to ask me. The Now continuing the topic, the covalent bond connecting two phosphates is it is indicated by this kind of a sign, and it is a high energy bond. This sign shows the energy bond is very high, and it is a high energy bond. The energy in this bond is released as it breaks. And the inorganic, see, the phosphate is inorganic because it is not the part of the cell, so we are going to denote it with the help of Pi, that organic phosphate. When it is a part of this, when the phosphate is the part of ATP, it is organic. When it gets separated, it becomes inorganic because it is not the part of the cell. So we denote it with the help of Pi, that is inorganic phosphate. The breaking of one phosphate bond releases about 7.3 kilocalories. So it means 7,300 calories or 7,300 calories per mole of ATP. You have to remember this reaction, that when ATP combined with water, it releases one phosphate and energy, too much of energy, that is a gigantic amount of energy. So actually when we are working, when we need energy for different life processes inside the body, this ATP undergoes through a reaction and it releases the phosphate and it changes itself into ADP and releases energy. Understand? In common energy reactions, only the outermost of the two high energy bonds break. Usually, as we have shown here, that it has three phosphates. So, usually the first, when the reaction we studied was, it shows this phosphate bond is broken and the phosphate is released. Now, it becomes ADP. This and 7.3 kilocalorie energy is released. Now they are explaining that only two of the phosphates can be released, and usually it occurs in this form, which is AMP. Two of the phosphates are released for the energy, and in common energy reactions, only the outermost of the two high-end bonds break. Usually, only the first phosphate bond is broken, and it changes into ADP. In some cases, ADP is further broken down into AMP, and again this reaction is 7.3 kilocalories per mole. If we have 1 mole of ADP, 1 mole is a measurement. Okay, so if we have 1 mole of ADP or 1 mole of ATP and the phosphate bond is broken, as a result we get 7.3 kilocalorie per mole. So don't get confused in this, just remember the reaction and the values also. Says they constantly recycle ADP, and recycling means they constantly continue the synthesis of ATP. How? From ADP to ATP, because one of the phosphate is again added and then it becomes ATP. So this energy is obtained from now see, they say that the energy is stored from ADP to ATP. This is ADP diphosphate to ATP triphosphate. So the change, so as we have to store energy, we want more phosphates. Okay, for more phosphates we have to change DP into TP, and now for this conversion we need energy. See here, for the conversion of ATP to ADP, it is releasing energy. Okay, now we need energy to make that bond again happen. Make that bond again, we need energy. So this energy is obtained with the help of oxidation of food stuff, whatever we eat, and it gets oxidized. So we can summarize that ATP is generated by the energy releasing process and is broken down by energy consuming process. And this is how it transfers energy between metabolic reactions. Understand? If there is any issue, please feel free to ask me. This is a new branch of biology, which is biochemistry, and the name of the chapter is bioenergetics. So please read the topic. I will ask questions about it.